Well, good morning. Good morning to everyone. It is a big pleasure to be here in this important International Open Congress with this big important team, the Atlantic Positive team. And in the name of INIAV team, I present the challenge of the monitoring of Vespa velutina Portugal as a case study. And talking about the challenge of the monitoring of Vespa velutina, today we present the context in Portugal and about the action plan for the surveillance and control. After that, an overview of the active surveillance and in this subject, the performance of traps and baits. After then, we share the results of our case study and the findings in this case study and some recommendations for future procedures. The context in Portugal about the Vespa velutina, as Professor Aranha told before, begins in Portugal in 2011 with the first detected insect in the western province in Minho, in the north, near Vigo, where we are physically. In 2030, the government established the importance of the surveillance of the nets and established the possibility of online platform, SOS Vespa, with the responsibility of the Institute for Natural and Forest Conservation. The aim of this platform that are online until today, very useful, is to identify and survey control of Vespa velutina through online georeferences of nets. And the next destruction shows us that of the location are near the beehives, as we listened in this morning. And in 2015, because we need more information and we need a plan to combat this species, the government established an action plan for the surveillance and control of Vespa velutina. In 2017, the government was established either a commission for the monitoring, prevention and control of Vespa velutina with two kinds of surveillance, passive and active. And in 2019, the government engaged the Beekeepers Association in the apiculture program and established funds for net destruction. And we see here the price that this program is in the responsibility of the city councils, and with 25 years to the destruction of the first net and 100 euros to the destruction of secondary nets. The nets are more or less at the urban local scale, about 5.5 nets by square kilometer, and has Carvalho and all published in the manuscript, in the scientific manuscript that I put in the slide. The locations of the nets destroyed in Portugal since 2012 to 2020 are 70% in the trees, near 20% inside the houses, 5% in shrubs, more or less 4% in grounds, and in wall near 3%. We see here the distribution since 2014 to 2020 of the nets near the coast, with the importance of the pressure of the pest dates from the platform SOS Vespa, And about 50,000 nets are detected and destroying during this period. About 3/3 of the country have the species. More or less 72% of the mainland country, and with the invasion spread about 40% kilometers a year. Data from Carvalho et al. In 2020. Well, the action plan is it's ongoing, of course, and this commission was made manuals to permit the people to have rules and information. And we have 3 manuals, one for basis for active surveillance. The responsibility of the active surveillance is from Nave Institute. And 2 manuals to good practice, to destruction and to trap captures. The active plan for surveillance and control have 2 kinds of surveillance. The passive is the location and the elimination of the nets. And we see here that the location are made by citizens in the platform. And the elimination is from the responsibility of experts, from the responsibility too of the municipalities. And the active surveillance is made by the monitoring adult insects with entomological traps. And we see in this slide that there is different kind of entomological traps. There is a commercial trap, and there are different kind of homemade traps that are used by a lot of people in the fields. And as we see here, we can use traps for combat and for active surveillance. And there is, as I tell before, there is different kinds of traps and also different kinds of baits. And the homemade traps and the homemade baits are very important because are simple to build and very accessible, and we can use very cheap materials. But we are talking today, and we are talking yesterday about the performance of this methodology. Traps and baits are a good option. Few studies have compared these kinds of performers of traps and baits to understand better the effectiveness of the trapping of Vespa velutina and either the consequences in native insect fauna. Leo and all and others, not many studies, not many manuscript research, but some. And also in Portugal, Nave was leader of a project, Vespa project, that there are online information because Vespa have a site. We can consult, and we have also made some trials and experimentals about these traps that are made by some important beekeeper associations in Portugal, and we are test and see the possible efficacy and impact in the environment. And the preliminary findings that we can share with you, we can see in the Vespa project platform that there is a negative impact on auxiliary fauna in these studies. Traps are not very selective, and there is a problem, of course. In these studies, 1–3% of the entomofauna capture in these traps are Vespa velutina, a big impact in the environmental, of course. Well, in this project, we are working in different kinds of work package. In this particular case, we present the dates from this case study, the study of Vespa velutina biological cycle and behavior, and compare the efficacy of the attractive food and the sexual traps and baits in the dynamic of the species and the combat and in the monitorization. And the importance to understand the efficacy of the baits and traps in Vespa, in the bees, and the impact in the bees and the indigenous entomofauna. Well, during COVID, since this period, we are made three trials in different positions in the country, where there are Vespa velutina. There are ours 3 experimental apiaries, and one in Viana do Castelo, so near that we are now physically in this Congress. Another one another one in the interior of the country, Nisa, and another one in Lisbon. Both Viana do Castelo and Lisbon apiaries are near the sea, and Nisa have different conditions because they are continental climate too, and are in the interior. The elevation of these apiaries are similar, more or less more than 120 meters above sea level. And Viana do Castelo was colonized since 2011, and both Nisa and Lisbon since 2020. And what are we doing, or what we are doing until now? Since November to August 2021, we are made three trials, each one in these places. And we are using to monitorize and to understand the impact of these baits in the Vespa velutina, in the honeybees and the other entomofauna insects, different sugar or proteins-based baits, and 3 kinds of traps. And the composition of the homemade baits are what we name yeast blend. It's a mixed with water, yeast, and sugar. Another one, Anna was told before, Anna Garcia, WBG blend, white wine, black beer, and currant syrup. We are using as commercial bait the Veto Pharma. We are using also a commercial named sangria drink. And why this bait? Because we collected information from the beekeepers. There are the mixtures, the homemade mixtures that beekeepers tell us that have a good impact in the species and less impact in the bees and entomofauna. And that's why we are made these choices. We are using also bee wasp, and as protein-based bait, the tuna and the chicken only in the traps, and only in Lisbon, because in Lisbon it was possible for us go there weekly, and to Viana do Castelo and Nisa because are so far, one time fortnightly by each time we go there. In each trial, we repeat the baits 3 times, and in Lisbon, because we have tuna and chicken, we have in the field 24 traps around the apiary, and each trap moves 1 position in rotation in the same position or direction. The data are analyzed by general models using Poisson model for the founders and negative binomial models for workers and honeybees. And to arthropods, we are using a non-parametric test comparing the mediums, the average mediums. Well, in these 3 trials, we have data from the flying of the males and females. In this slide, we show the fly with, from founders and workers, and we see that they stop only few time. In the Viana do Castelo and Lisbon, founders stopped flying more or less about 1.5 and 2 months. And in Niza, they stopped flying from 20 January to the, 17 February. Well, they are flying a lot of time, of course. That's what we see in the field. And workers in this year begin flying more or less in April. And the number of the captures in these traps are slow. Near the apiaries, the number of the interaction of the traps and the Vespa velutina is very low. This is a very important information for us, of course. About the capture of foundresses in trap, we see there are similar values in the three situations, and we are going to see after that it is not the same with the workers. Well, the founders in the traps are very similar number, and we see here that East Blend and Vetopharma are the best options in this study, in these tests, and in these different kinds of possibilities. And sangria drink and sexual pheromone have regular performance in the different experimentals. About workers, we see that there are different relationships in the workers in the traps. Even so, the best performance are in the same modalities, East Blend and Vetopharma, but the number of the captures are very slow either, again. And we can see that in different locations, far away, about 200 kilometers and more, the response of the species are similar at the same compounds, and that the workers' density does not appear to interfere with bait effectiveness. And about honeybees. About honeybees, we see here that the interaction with this substance with honeybees are different also in the three experimentals, in the three apiaries, and none of them are very good, we see that, and that there is a different interactions in the honeybees and in the traps, and the best results are in Niza, because Niza are in the interior of Portugal with hot summer conditions, and a few humidity in the traps are very important to the bees, and there are more capture in that kind of conditions. The impact are bigger. And about other arthropods in the traps. Well, we are seeing the results of Anna, and our results are in the same direction. There are a very big interaction and interferences in environmental with these traps. And we see here that the beeswax are similar with the performance of sexual pheromone, and are less interference that sangria drink, and that WBG blend or Yeast blend and Vetopharma are similar performance. No significant difference between these three options as bait in the traps. And in general, if we think about the number, the impact that this kind of experiments are in the environmental, we see that also in Niza, Viana do Castelo, and Lisbon, we interfere with the 11 orders from three phyla, thinking about classification, Arthropoda, Chordata, and Mollusca. And the most important for us is that in the same direction that Ana Garcia has told before, the diptera order are about 70 to 90% of the insects that are in the traps. Other Hymenoptera goes until 4% and Lepidoptera until 7%. Honeybees are captured until 9% of the total of the insects, and Vespa velutina change between the phase of the year and the trap 1 to 8%. And sexual pheromone. We are by it sexual pheromone because we see that there are a possibility. By our results is not a good option, and is not a good option near the apiaries, and it's not possible to understand the dynamic of the males by that option, and there is interferences in the entomofauna, either bumblebees, other Vespidae insects. As the main results, we put here all the information about the performance of these baits in the surveillance model, and has homemade yeast blend. Yeast blend, it was the best option, of course, and of course with these results. And the commercial bait, it was Vetopharma. It was the only commercial that we are using. Are few, but are similar performance with Vespa velutina. But if we see with the very attention the impact in the environment sector, there are a high negative environment impact. Well, for us, the most important findings of this experimental, because Nave is responsible to improve and to make on this monitor system, the surveillance system. We can tell that in our experimental, in 3 places in Portugal, in different climate conditions, in different pressure of the pest, of the species, the invasor, sugar-based baits, yeast blend or Vetopharma allow year-round monitoring from founders or workers. We don't need to change. They are not the best performance, but are similar during the year. In the apiary, baits show little capture of foundress. If we think that in the spring we put them and we capture a lot of foundress, the results don't show us that. And there is also a big impact in arthropod fauna. It's possible to monitoring, but to fight are the results. And it's important that maybe traps near the nets that in the previous year we found, it's important maybe because the foundress flying, and if the traps are near, maybe it's a good information to have less colonies and to reduce the pressure of the species. In the spring, but very spring in the spring, sorry, traps must be next to apiaries, because we see in our data that in April we have also workers, and that in February we have founders. And the position in the field of the traps is very important. And the trap are important to means as a preventive fight in invaded zones, and also in zones where Vespa velutina are present, of course. Our recommendation for country and for other countries, we show the map of the position, the present position of Portugal, and we see the spots are the nets validated by the official entities, And we see in in red, the zone with Vespa velutina, more pressure near the coast. It's important because of the weather. We see the green, the zone without invasion, and what we name a buffer zone, the zone very important to have a good surveillance system, as yesterday Federico Cappa was told us. Well, Finnish early detection of any invasive alien species is crucial to minimize their effects, and early detection can be by nets, but it's not so early that flying insects. Active surveillance network deployed across the country is very important, a very active surveillance network. Cross-species dynamic data with climate data and risk factors are crucial, and it's our next step. And it's important with this kind of data that we are talking in this morning, the importance of develop more selective traps and more attractive compounds to provide more effective monitorization of Vespa velutina, less impact and environment, and be more sustainable for the world in general. And I thank you very much your attention in general. I thank you very much to the European Funding Programme, Interreg Atlantic Area, and our team, in special these 4 people, Joana Godinho, Manuela Branco, Maria Ferreira, João Fernandes, and all the team in general, because we are in the field making this research during the COVID, and the beekeepers for share with us the problems and deposit in our team knowledge to make more research and better good information. Thank you very much.